Hello everyone, welcome to Maths Bridge. We shall continue our learning of JavaScript concepts. Let's get into today's session. In this session, we will be seeing scope of the variables, undefined variables, variable visibility like a block scope, visibility of a variable when we use let to the variable, visibility of the variable when we use constant keyword to the variable, accessing variables from outside of the block, accessing variables from inside of the block called as a local variables, and then global variables. Okay, these are things we shall see in this session. In this session, we will try attempt to explore the concept of variables in JavaScript. Okay, when you say variable, let's say I was trying to give like an x equal to 4. What this means, like x is then a variable, 4 is then a value, right? 4 is a value. You are trying to assign the 4 to the x, means like you can imagine you have memory location which is logically named as x, and then you're trying to store the value in it is like 4. So what is this 4 means is like a whole number, is like an integer number, right? Number. So x, ideally speaking, of data type number is like integer data type. Like, without you explicitly declare the variable type, how would actually JavaScript recognize? So JavaScript interpreter recognize what type of the data to be assigned to this variable during the runtime based out of what value that we are trying to assign to it. Are you getting me? So let's say if you say y equal to some sort of a string, okay, assuming I am saying this is maths, then how do you see here now? Ideally speaking, this y is the variable which we use to store the string in it. So that means now interpreter during the runtime identify that what type of what data type that it has to assign to this variable y. In this case is called as a string, right? This is a string, right? So this is what we call it as a dynamically typed programming language. JavaScript is a dynamically typed programming language where as a developer you don't need to explicitly declare the data type of the variable. However, there is a 4 ways you have to declare the variable. Those are called as an automatically, means like you don't need to call it as, but that's not a good practice. But what we say is that if we have a keyword called var and keyword called let and another keyword called const. These are the 3 ways where you can declare the variable. Older browsers like before till 2015, what are the browsers that you have read, those supports this type of variable declaration in JavaScript. And a let and constant were introduced later 2015. That means like all the newer browsers we recommended to use a let and constant way of actually declaring the variables. Okay, declaring the variable in the sense like, let's say I would call it as a let x, then you define the value. Okay, declaration is what it means. This part is called as a declaration, variable declaration. Your declaration is done, but you are not assign any value to it. If you don't assign the value, then what we can call it as a undefined. Undefined. right? But undefined means like you are not at assigned a value. If you assign a value something like this, this is called defined. So it is always nice to declare the variable type and then started using, means like assigning the value or modifying the value. So you understand, declaration and undefined and definition, these two together you can also put in the same line, like let y equal to 100. I can say this way, right? Because this is a way of declaring the variable, and then this is the assigning to it. This is called like a defined variable. Let's look at my screen. I have a file named undefined.js. Let's try see like how your interpreter actually try to recognize this variable, and then what would it says. So I'm using like hex is a variable. I'm using a keyword called let for declaring the variable. Let x. That means like a declaration part is done. Now I was trying to actually print the content, means like a value which we have in this variable, right, using console.log. So let me try test this one. So we know the command called node and then give a file name. Okay, enter. So it will execute. So what it returns is like an undefined. What this means, like x was declared but not defined. So let me say here x equal to 5, then try to print this value and then save the changes. What you do, like rerun the command. Now you see in the line number 2 it recognizes as a undefined, and line number 4 it gets printed because where x is defined. Are you getting me? Right, this is what you have to understand, what is mean by undefined. When you are actually trying to use a variable, it is always you know uh, good practice to declare the variable type and also define the type. If you don't define, it's called unused variable or undefined variable, is what your interpreter says. Okay, this is one way that you have to understand. Now let's try understand the scope. Block scope means what? Look at my example. Let x equal to 5 means I declare the variable x as a let and assign the value to it. It's like a defined definition declaration done at line number 6. Now I'm trying to print the value on the console, right? So let me run this command node and file name. So what do you see? The value x is getting printed on my console, which is 5. It is very true because that's the value that you assign to it. Now I would ask a question. Can I, you know, uh, can I redeclare this variable again within the same file? At the same level, you cannot re-declare the variable. What this means, I will show you. If I can copy and paste here, what it means is you already declare this variable, and then why would you need to redeclare again, that we don't know, but interpreter says that redeclaration is not allowed. Same variable you cannot redeclare. You can use it but you can't redeclare. You can use it in the sense you can update the value as 100, that is allowed, so no issue. So if you can actually try print this value, what happens, you will get it. I'll show you this how. If you rerun this code again, now you get like 100 as an updated value. But if you use a let means like you are trying to redeclare by using the same variable name, which is not allowed. That's the one idea. That's case. Next thing I will show you different part. There is a scope limitation by enclosing a block statement, meaning enclosed with a flower brackets. if I would actually use this way, what this means, like the visibility of this variable within this limit in a program, not outside. Okay, let me show you again. So I have a block, line number 5 to line number n, where I have three statements, executable statements. If I run this program, what it shows me, okay, so my statements are inside, so it would return inside the block and x equal to 5. Great. If I would actually try to print, these statements outside to access the x value, do you think like you can do this outside? Try out, no? You can save the changes and then rerun again. You see what happens. You get an error. Are you getting me? So meaning this x scope, the visibility of x is only within this block, means like you can only access this variable within this block. If you would actually try attempt to access from outside of the block, since the scope is limited to within this boundary, you will, program will not be able to see outside of this boundary. It means like a scope is limited. This is called a block scope. Are you getting me? So let me say, in this case you can redeclare your variable outside as well. Let me put this way, let x equal to 100. Now you guess what would be the output. This x equal to 5, this x equal to 100, these two will be treated as a different variables in their own context. This is outside of the block variable, this is inside of the block variable. Okay, in this case, what would be your output? Inside, x value will be 5, outside x value would be 100. So now you can rerun the same script again. What you see, inside the block where x equal 5, outside of the block where x equal 100 is what you are getting on the console. Do you understand? This is what we can call it as a block scope, right? So any variable, if you declared with a keyword called let, then that variable scope is block scope, right? This is how you have to understand the concept of block scope, meaning the visibility of the variable limiting to a block where you declared and defined. This concept remains same for the, variable type const. So look at my screen again. Okay, so my block is defined between line number 8 and line number 10, where I have a const variable x equal to 5, this inside the block. Okay, and then outside of the block where I have another const variable which we declared and defined at line number 7. So when you try to access from line number 15, basically it refers the variable at line number x, not inside, because this is like a outside scope, this is inside scope. Okay, the output would be here, you see node, and are you getting me? So const variable scope, this is a line number 6, and then line number 10, what we get is inside the block, because the loop entered into inside. Program control actually entered into line number 10, where I redirected this message on the console, and then line number 11 is what I got is like a 5 again. Now at line number 15, this is my message, console message, so I would easily say that my control is here. Next one is like line number 15, where I was trying to print the value of x, which is of which value is the local value or the, outside of the block value, inside of the block, which variable that I am referring in this case, right? Outside of the block, this is 100. So this is how you have to look at the scope of the variable. Quick test. Would you guess like what would be the output? Does this program run at first place, or does it actually throw any errors? that obviously two ways you can answer this question, right? Just run this and you will be able to tell easily, correct? Now get okay, so some output actually produced, that means like it is compiled, there is no issue in this program. So try understand like why it was not an issue. I have a variable x declared at line number 10. Inside the block I have the variable y. Now we are trying to print the value of x and y. Why would do you think like compiler is not throwing error, your interpreter I mean is not throwing in any error? So try understand, local variable is y, right? Y is the local variable because which is what you declared and defined inside of this block. X is the outside of the block, means like this scope is actually to this file in this context. So the outside of these variables can be accessed anywhere else, inside the block, right, or outside of the block, because this variable is declared at outside of the block, whereas y is local to this block. So this visibility is only limited between the line number 6 and line number 12 in this case. So accessing y would becomes like issue, like because the visibility constraint. But whereas x can be accessed either the outside of the block or inside the block. That's why you got this the output. Are you getting me? Right. If you try access this value y from outside of this block, that is where actually you have a issue. I'll show you how that works now. So you are trying to print the value y, which is a local variable to the block 1, but you are trying to access from outside. So because of visibility constraint, if you run this program at the runtime, it got an error. Great. If you comment this, save the changes and then rerun it, you get happily the expected answer. You would see the same results even in the web browser. You get me? So you are at inside block at line number 8, and then y and x is what you are trying to print line number 9 and 11, which is of your file line number. Outside the block you are at line number 14 is what you are trying to print, and the value of x is what, line number 15. Same thing, what you can see here. Let's summarize when to use which type of variable. So we have seen the keywords let, we have the keyword constant, and also var. So when you say let, using let to the variable, which means this value may update in later point of time. That means like you can update the value at any given point in time within that scope. That is a place where you can use let for the variables. Whereas a constant means when you don't want the value to be changed, means like the value remains constant once you declare the variable and then ascend. So const is a keyword, and let's say y equal to 100. This means within the scope, in the entire program lifecycle, this value remains same. If you try to modify the value, it throws an exception for us. That's what meaning of const keyword when you apply to the variable. Whereas the var means, right, var is a variable, you can use it as a recommendation when we need it to support older browsers. But for modern JavaScript browsers, you would try use only let and constant, but not the var variable. Finally, use a meaningful names to make your code more readable. Though I am using x and y for my examples, but highly recommended for you to give the proper names to the variables, so your code gives more readability. Okay, I hope this concept helps understanding how to declare the variable names, what are the ways you can declare the variables, and then what is the scope of those variables in JavaScript. Again, JavaScript is a dynamically typed programming language. When you are using a variables, you always keep in mind that whether we allowed to redeclare the variable or reassign the variable or re-update the variable, yes or no kind of things. Based out of that judgment, you have to wisely give the keyword let and const to the variable in your JavaScript programming. I hope this helps. Good luck. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, click on bell icon and leave the comments. Happy learning. Thank you. Stay tuned to upcoming sessions.